Welcome everybody to episode 21 of the Week in Strange. That is 777. We are here. Today is going to be a real banger. I've got a lot of energy. I know all three of us do. So Thomas, hi.
Hi, Timony. Hi, Jason.
How are you?
Pretty amazed as we're at 21 episodes already, which is, kind of like a number associated with maturity and growth. So that's good. Yeah. We're established.
Yep. I'm really excited for today. I'm looking forward to hearing everything that we're all going to bounce off one another and everything that comes through the comments. So everybody just unleash in the comment section today. It seems like out there on the internet, everybody's been kind of doing their own sleuthing and tearing things apart. And that is brilliant. So anything, whether you think it's a big deal or a little deal, it doesn't matter. We're just go nuts in the comment section today. We're going to start off with a few stories here. Did you have anything to say for opening? Okay, cool. All righty. So we're going to kick this off with, oh, my phone wants to freak out already. Hang on. From November 29th. NASA just detected a parallel universe where time runs backwards after an experiment in Antarctica. Antarctica is ground zero for both theories and experiments nowadays. Most of the shocking discoveries of our generation were all made in Antarctica. And the more we look into it, the stranger the land becomes and the less we know about it. Recently, NASA conducted an experiment on the premises of Antarctica, which actually brought back a ton of proof that supports the theory of the parallel universe and the unlikelihood of our universe. They wrote this really bad. This one runs on different laws of physics. To be precise, this is NASA themselves confirming this. This is them stating that the parallel universe is unlike anything that we've ever seen or heard of before, and that time itself seems to run backward in it. The idea of parallel universes has been parading the scene since 1952, when a group of physicists brought forth this theory. This seemed quite far-fetched at the time, but as we all know, with time, any theory can become a fact. Erwin Schrödinger came up with this theory, and he even stated that although the idea was crazy to begin with, it was definitely not impossible. NASA confirmed this idea by conducting a cosmic ray detection experiment in Antarctica, finding a particle that is out of this world according to them. This is a great day for theorists around the globe. With NASA on our side for once, we can definitely be more confident in our findings. So this is going to tie in later, and you guys will see why. Time running backwards has always been a thing. We've talked about this so many times on this show. I know Thomas has an unending supply of information and gnosis and things that he can give us on that. So Thomas, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's an amazing story, and it's I love the fact that it's done in Antarctica as well. It seems to be like almost too good to be true, but there, it's amazing enough that they've actually quantified there's a parallel universe. I mean, that's been suspected for a long time, but the fact that it's running backward in time is just so mind-blowing. Like, are we at the same, when our observation or awareness of it, are we hitting at the same time? And then if we watch the other side, it's going backward in time, then we go forward in time, but we're synced at the same time like this, until, we realize that one is going back in time and we're going forward. I find that just unbelievable. And then again, what is time? It's basically a man-made thing. And time doesn't actually exist as such. It's really related to entropy and things like that, and the clock speed of our brains. And, we've been told that everything in the universe happens all at once. And this is the whole, the Hindus and the Vedics have been telling us about Maya, this concept forever, that it's all a gigantic illusion and anything is possible. But I found the way NASA phrased this, it was almost very much like they're interested in time travel now more than space travel. And I think that's really what's the subtext of the story is that the fact that he specifically made comment that it travels backward in time is that these guys are looking at time travel, I think.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to what you were talking about a few weeks ago, or maybe it was the last one you did with us, Thomas, about somebody like a baseball player projecting themselves forward in time in order to hit the fastball coming at them. And again, before I've mentioned this one a few other times, that years ago, there was that, conspiracy theory that there's a certain military intelligence group that has a device or is sitting on a place on the planet, a naturally occurring place on the planet, kind of like a gravity hill, but instead the time there is actually a couple, like maybe 15 minutes ahead of time everywhere else. And this idea that if there is some sort of technology that can do that, just like an event rippling back in time and going in different directions, that there's got to be some kind of technology like that where somebody can be projecting in a certain space the ability to be slightly ahead of something, to project their awareness, to project their consciousness, where maybe their physical body might be here in this time space continuum, but their perception and their awareness as consciousness being slightly ahead of where the wave of experience of this universe is. So it makes me wonder about that with time waves, with the concept that people can just get on that wave a little bit ahead of things before the rest of us experience it. And that's why sometimes with military intelligence stuff, there's just people knowing before something occurs that it's going to happen. But again, I think this is interesting too, that this is going on down in Antarctica. And I know that the image that I picked out for this one is silly. It's like a bunch of speakers with a NASA emblem on it and a crane. And I thought that was kind of cute. People are commenting about NASA having a music festival down there in Antarctica. But that idea that what is it about Antarctica and why have there been so many expeditions down there that, and it's just closed off to the general public. Civilian can't go to Antarctica. And it, takes me back to some of the ideas about what H.P. Lovecraft wrote about with Antarctica and what's down there. Is there remnants or residue of a previous human civilization still packed up in the ice there? And that's what I always go back to with Antarctica, is this idea that maybe there might be artifacts left over from previous cycle here before the last cataclysm occurred. And that's where some of this technology is coming out of.
Absolutely. Back to the whole time thing again, data points for this come from the strangest places. For instance, there's huge effort put into Las Vegas casinos and betting and gambling outlets all over the world that they can spot if somebody can actually has an ability to see the future. And this happens if somebody is able to actually see the same what horses win races and things like this over beyond the number of chance or sports events or roulette table or even the winning cards and decks. And this has been known for years in gambling circles, that there are individuals who are absolutely able to see the results before it's actually manifests. And they're thrown out of casino as soon as they hit like one or two hits. They're actually treated quite badly. So you want to talk to somebody about that people predict to see the future, travel in time. Well, go to Las Vegas casinos. They'll tell you there absolutely are people that can.
Yeah, that makes me wonder what are they using to spot that? Are they using an AI or is it a quantum thing? Or do they have somebody else on the other side working for the casino that has the same abilities as the people who are playing the game? How do they do that?
It's a computer system. They quantify the odds. There's the probability at a certain time. And they know that there's no way in hell that's an actual thing that's happening. Now they've caught genuine scams. There's a poker game called The Nuts, and they busted a whole bunch of physicists once who were winning at that game because they made calculations of when certain numbers would come up in cards. That's when it started. But then they discovered there were people that were actually able to do it without actually doing scams. They knew the answer. They knew where the ball was going to land on the roulette table. Where they knew exactly the winner of horse races and sports events around the world. And there's only way they could have known that is time travel or, in the future, something in the future projecting back. And once the probability, they'll actually shut down whole gambling systems. As soon as one of these anomalies is spotted, they'll shut down the tables immediately and they'll shut down the casino. It's happened a few times and put it, until they find out who's responsible for it. And they'll throw them out of the casino quite nastily. But
with a bouncer.
Las Vegas knows that there's people who can see the results in the future, and they're actually in a constant battle against them.
Las Vegas is a really interesting place to me. I've been there a bazillion times. I actually lived there for a while when I was younger. And I was there do you remember the Sands Hotel? It was a really famous hotel that was there for a long time. I watched them implode it from the balcony of the apartment complex that we were living in at the time. And that was just like a really intense experience for me. I probably was like 7 or 8 years old, or I'm not sure how old I was, maybe 10. But there's always been, I don't particularly like Vegas. It's a little too chaotic for me. It's too electric. If I'm going to experience something like that, I'd rather go to New York. But Vegas does have this weirdly strange magical energy about it. There's a lot of psychic stuff going on there, and what you're saying totally makes sense. I'm sure there's even more there going on than we even know about. But
so does Atlantic City in New Jersey. Atlantic City in New Jersey is a big gambling place. Well, that has a strange energy too.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
I was just saying Atlantic City in New Jersey is another big gambling place, and that has a weird kind of spookiness about it too. That's hard to put your finger on. Yeah, it's got this weird kind of strangeness. Well, the whole Jersey Shore does, but there's something about that place. There's a weirdness to it. It's like it's hard to explain. And I'd imagine the energy in Vegas is kind of similar. I can remember when they had that horrible massacre a few years ago, and they shot all the people at the country music festival. Somebody was driving around Vegas with a camera trying to locate where the shots were coming from, and they were on the other side of the building. And it's one of the spookiest videos I've ever seen in my life. You hear the machine gun going off every so often, and then you just hear like this weird eerie silence in like an empty street. So it was like, even on a video, it came across a really weird, sort of like unnatural place or a supernatural place.
It is. It's just, it has a really dark undertone to it. I can handle about 24 hours in Vegas there if I absolutely have to go for something, which I don't absolutely have to go there for anything. But if there was a show or something I wanted to attend, I would go in for the show and leave right away. I've spent enough time there I've had my fill of it, and something really chaotic always seems to happen around me. And not just me, it's all around. So you kind of can't help but be aware of it, especially if you're aware at all. And so anyways, yeah. But very interesting that these types of psychic gameplays are happening there.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of old people there too, as well. And they're like, old people love gambling. And it's almost like they're at the end of their lives. There's something kind of mystical about that as well. They're trying to transform themselves into cash at the end of their existence. There's some kind of transmutation alchemy that they're trying to become gold at the end. There's so many. The occult history of Las Vegas and gambling is something that hasn't had enough study yet.
And there's it's a well-known thing about it, but within the casinos, once you go, it doesn't matter what side you enter in the building, you get immediately turned around. There's no windows. They consistently pump fresh oxygen through there. They light it with just a certain amount of light that it's that same way all the time. So you could spend hours and hours and hours in there. You never see the time of day change with the natural light.
Ooh.
So it's very hypnotic. It's a super hypnotic place.
I'd like to visit sometime.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go to Vegas if you want to go.
Yeah, this whole thing reminds me too of, I don't know if you guys have seen the film Tenet, where there's a reality that's inverted, and it's very much just like this news story here about NASA, where there's a reality that's an inverse version of this one, and people within that reality move backwards. So it's like there was an inception point of an incident that occurred, and from that point of that incident that occurred, the time goes in opposite directions. So it sounds real similar to that, and just the fact that something like that's kind of in the zeitgeist or the flavor of the time right now, that people are talking about some sort of event horizon where something can occur, and then maybe as we're nearing that event horizon, the other timeline is nearing this one too, and perhaps that's what's going on now, like a singularity event. I know that people usually associate the singularity with the AI bullshit and the transhumanism, but like a singularity of 2 points meeting at an event horizon, when if these two realities are encroaching upon each other, who knows, maybe that's what is going on right now, like what you're talking about, Thomas, all the time, that what is actually going on with all of the restrictions and stuff that we're experiencing. Is there something on this kind of level where there's an event about to occur, or event that's occurring, something that's unfolding as we're experiencing it? Yes. Okay. All right. But I think that
we'll do that at the end. But I'll tell you though, one thing that I often wonder if 9/11 was when there was such a disruption to the human psyche, that when those two single converging timelines blew each other apart, and we actually got shocked back in time.
Yeah. Or we're on just a completely different track now.
Yeah.
A parallel reality, shall we say?
Yeah, I'd be up for it, because look how everyone's life has changed since then. And, there's no certainties in life anymore. The world is a very feral place. The consciousness of humanity is very feral. And nothing seems the same ever since that day.
Yep, I'd agree with that.
For good and for bad, I might add.
Yeah, it was kind of like an ability to have a blank slate. You could go either way.
Yep.
Alrighty. Next one. Published November 28th of 2021. Large asteroid stronger than nuke heading towards Earth in late December. 2018 AH is estimated to be around 190 meters long, similar to the Tunguska asteroid, meaning it would be far more powerful than a nuclear bomb. A large asteroid the size of the Washington Monument is heading for Earth in late December that, if it impacts, would cause devastation far greater than an atomic bomb, according to NASA's asteroid tracker. Known as 2018 AH, this asteroid is estimated to be about 190 meters wide and is set to pass by the Earth on December 27th. The asteroid is unlikely to hit the planet, however, expected to pass by at a distance of more than 4.5 million kilometers. For comparison, the distance between the Earth and the Moon is around 384,000 kilometers, about a twelfth of that. But 2018 AH has come by Earth before and at a much closer distance. Back in 2018, it flew past the planet at a distance of 296,000 kilometers, 3/4 of the distance from the Earth to the Moon. It had gone unnoticed due to its dimness, and scientists therefore didn't see it coming. Since that time, no asteroid of such size has come so close to the Earth, and none are expected to until 2028, when the massive, nearly kilometer-long 2001 WN5 will arrive. But it won't hit the planet either, being expected to pass at a distance of around 249,000 kilometers, even closer than 2018 AH did. But what would happen if an asteroid the size of 2018 AH struck the Earth? Ordinarily, it can be difficult to accurately guess, as size often varies. But in this case, astronomers happen to have a very good idea of exactly how destructive it would be, because something like this happened before. The last time a large asteroid struck the planet was in 2013 in Russia, when a 17-meter asteroid exploded in the atmosphere. But the last impact from an asteroid this big was in 1908 above Tunguska River, the Tunguska River in Russia, in what has now become known as the Tunguska event. This asteroid is believed to have been around the same size as 2018 AH, if not smaller. When the asteroid exploded in the air several kilometers above the area, it produced a massive 12 megaton explosion, causing widespread destruction for thousands of kilometers. That would make it about 800 times more powerful than the Little Boy, the approximately 15 kiloton atomic bomb detonated during World War II over Hiroshima, and 600 times more than that of Fat Man, the 20 kiloton one detonated over Nagasaki 3 days later. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, a U.S. government report at the time stated that Hiroshima suffered 135,000 casualties, or more than half of its population, and Nagasaki 64,000, a third of its population. The death toll from the Tunguska event was extremely low, however, with only around 3 people thought to have been killed in it, due to how remote and sparsely populated the region was. But the damage was still evident, with about 80 million trees completely flattened, winds of around 27 kilometers, a second bursting around, and a loud noise heard far and wide. Tremors and air waves were felt as far away as even Washington and Indonesia. The few eyewitness accounts that do recount the terrifying explosion, strong winds, tremors, and incredibly loud noises. The sky split in two and fire appeared high and wide over the forest, recounted a man who was about 65 kilometers south of the explosion. The split in the sky grew larger, and the entire northern side was covered with fire. At that moment, I became so hot that I couldn't bear it, as if my shirt were on fire. From the northern side, where the fire was, came strong heat. I wanted to tear off my shirt and throw it down, but then the sky shut closed and a strong thump sounded, and I was thrown a few meters. I lost my senses for a moment, but then my wife ran out and led me to the house. After that, such noise came, as if rocks were falling or cannons were firing. The earth shook, and when I was on the ground, I pressed my head down, fearing rocks would smash it. When the sky opened up, hot wind raced between the houses like from cannons, which left traces in the ground like pathways, and it damaged some crops. Later, we saw that many windows were shattered, and in the barn, a part of the iron lock had snapped. The Tunguska event is the largest in recorded history. The larger prehistoric ones have happened, and is one of the largest explosions ever recorded, far more powerful than many nuclear bombs. So lockdowns, huh?
I'm not convinced the Tunguska thing is an asteroid, simply because the forest didn't go on fire. And there should have been the vast forests of Siberia should have went up in flames. And when a few years later, when the first exhibitions went into that region to find, they actually wanted to find the meteor or whatever it was, they actually got to the center where all those trees were radiating out like this, but none of them showed any signs of being burnt ever. There was no charcoal or anything. So, excuse me, that never made sense to me.
I say, if you've ever seen footage of a wildfire, the air gets so superheated that the trees, several hundreds of feet before the fire line actually reaches them, combust. Yeah. So if the air is that superheated and there's that much momentum and wind traveling through to catch the fuel on fire, they would have burnt.
Yeah, Arthur C. Clarke theorized that Tunguska was probably an antimatter event.
Yeah, or this idea too about like a plasma arc jumping from the sun to maybe not the sun, but from the moon or from some other celestial body to the earth, like a discharge event, like the way that the discharge.
Arcing.
Yeah, arcing. Thank you. but something like that. And I know that as the sun starts acting up as we go into the next grand solar minimum, people have talked about things like this occurring where potentially there could be some sort of discharge, if there's a capacitance built up, zapping it out, just like if you're walking across the carpet during a dry day, you can discharge the static onto something.
I tell you, these asteroid stories are nonstop. Every feckin' day. I've never seen anything like it. Right. It almost seems like some force out there is throwing these things at us like a slingshot, trying to hit us. And you wonder about Trump's space army and things like that, and why China's building this space station that's nearly a half a mile long and with like weapons on it and stuff like this. It's like, I just can't remember a time, and they say things like, oh, they're better at detecting them now. Sure, they are, but they still were able to see the ones coming close. And it just seems to be nonstop. Every day there's a story about they're preparing for an asteroid. They're looking to blow one up. We have to be careful. There's another one coming in, another one. It never ends. That never ends.
Yeah. And it is interesting with the whole lockdown thing, getting the majority of people to stay inside. And we've talked about this before, but and from not looking up.
Yeah. So, Greg Moffat actually spoke about that and one of his podcasts about that. Could that be the reason that they're keeping us all at home, potentially knowing the world is coming to an end from this asteroid, this kind of like melancholia type event of some large body hitting the earth? I mean, at this stage, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth all the time on it, but it does amaze me how every single day there's a new asteroid story, literally.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, has the thing already happened and we're just all dreaming backwards now? I've had some really, really, really vivid dreams over the years of, extinction level event things happening. And they're ones that I wake up from thinking, holy shit, that happened. And I just woke up now on the other side.
Yeah.
So I wonder about that stuff too. That's pretty Fortean, but yeah.
Well, no, it's not. I'll tell you something else. The way I said when I was looking through the NASA archive for Lever Velocity, and I looked at all the badly developed photographs from all the Apollo missions on the moon, and I came with just it hit me that the moon is a haunted planet. What if the moon was the Earth that was destroyed, and we're the ghosts living on this one here?
Yeah, it just to go off of what both of you were saying, Tim and you were talking about that, and it just reminded me of watching Vanilla Sky the other day. Thomas, have you seen Vanilla Sky?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I recommend you watch it, and anybody else here watch it too if you haven't seen it already. But to me, I interpret that film as kind of like a what goes on after one has had bodily death and you're going through the bardo or the in-between lives period, where you're processing everything that occurred in your life to balance things out for your next incarnation. And it just made me think about this idea, like, did something occur sometime in the past or is occurring, and all of us collectively have died, and we're going through some sort of metempsychosis together, that how malleable reality is compared to the way it was just a few years ago. Is this, you know, the next reality that we're all creating together? Just like you talked about, Thomas, if the moon was the last planetary body to hold life on it, if you know, we're going into another one of those, creating a moonchild, so to speak, of the next condensation of reality into a new, more solid planet. And just that idea that, you know, maybe that's how this whole thing works. Like I've had a lot of dreams about Mars, kind of in a science fiction type way, that there was once a civilization of people there on Mars, and just, like, you know, got wiped out either from war or a natural cataclysm, whatever, for whatever reason got wiped out. And if people were to actually go and, you know, dig up around, you know, Mars, you'd find, you know, soda cans and beer bottles and stuff from the last civilization that lived on Mars there, or something like that. But just, yeah, that idea that, you know, what happens when everybody on a planet gets wiped out simultaneously, and consciousness of all those people and the memories they have of this physical universe collectively creating a new reality together. And I would imagine the strongest personalities within that group would have kind of the most sway in the way that the clay gets shaped to create the next reality. The ideas and concepts and paradigms that get mocked up, you know, the most powerful magicians have that kind of sway.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the NPCs, if their souls were actually left on the other world.
Well, yeah. There's another piece of the NPC puzzle. All right. So yeah, there's that. Another asteroid, more into the world. Okay. Next. Okay, here we go. This one was published end of September. The Not Deer, an odd cryptid still making appearances in Appalachia and beyond. It's tough to keep track of the hundreds of various cryptids, monsters, and legendary creatures around the world, let alone the US, especially those with unusual names, often given to them by the native people who first reported them. On the other hand, it's easy to remember these whose names are self-descriptive, like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. The fine folks at Phantoms and Monsters get unusual sightings reports from everywhere, and a recent one caught this writer's eye because of its unusual self-descriptive name, the Not Deer. If it's not a deer, what is it? I only ran into the Not Deer once, and that was about a mile away from my own house on a gravel road that cut through some forest fields and goes right near Goose Creek, South Carolina. From that exact point on the trail, the Not Deer slinked out from between a cluster of trees that should have been too close together for them to hear through. And it had giant branching antlers, the kind you never see in real life because they'd get broken during mating season or the bucks get shot during hunting season. They seemed more like crowns or swords than anything else. I mentioned earlier that the Not Deer felt like part of the forest, enraged and vicious, but still familiar. It just hopped away into the trees and bushes and left me continue my walk home. Those are the key descriptive items from the unnamed Not Deer eyewitness, a creature that was kind of deer, but more not deer in this case, because of its massive antlers and its huge size that the witness described as similar to an animated drawing, but definitely not a deer. The Reddit page Our Appalachia has a detailed drawing and handwritten description from an old book that says that the Not Deer has moose-like bodily proportions, can run at speeds of 30 miles per hour or faster, is oddly proportioned with more or less joints than a normal deer, and forward-facing predator eyes. This particular account is said to be from Virginia, where the Not Deer is prevalent, but like the one in South Carolina, being close to it gave a deeply unsettling feeling. What pushes this from urban legend to cryptid are the reports that the Not Deer walks on its hind legs and has arms with hands in place of forelegs. The site Root and Rock has some other accounts, but refers to the Not Deer as a folk cryptid, a mythical creature seen at night, often in headlights, that is probably a deer, dog, person, or something else in the daylight. Is the Not Deer some kind of mutant deer? Our Appalachia throws out the idea that these sightings might be of a deer with chronic wasting disease, a neurological disorder in deer similar to mad cow disease that causes severe weight loss, which could make antlers look bigger and bodies to look misshapen, reduced fear of humans, which could cause the creature to approach rather than run away, and unusual behavior as it attacks the deer's brain. That could cover everything except the walking on two legs with arms instead of four legs. Cryptid Wiki describes the deer man as a creature with the antlered head of a great stag, a human's torso, and legs described as similar to either those of a man or a deer. Well-muscled, surprisingly fast, and often shapeshifts to a regular deer. It lists sightings in Ohio, Delaware, and Oklahoma. I had never heard of this one before, but it brings to mind so many things. First of all, is you remember that movie, The Ritual? I really like their depiction of the what was it, the Yotan, which obviously they did their own thing with it, but that was the visual I got when I was reading this, and just a forest god, another type of forest god, and we've seen there was that news report several weeks or maybe a few months back where there were the two white stags that were seen crossing the highway. Somebody caught that. And then wasn't there another one where there was a white stag that was killed in a city square?
Yeah, and Bootle in Liverpool. That's a white stag was shot. Yeah. Yeah, it does remind you a lot of things. Heron the Hunter. Have you ever heard about Heron the Hunter?
No.
Heron the Hunter is a kind of a nature spirit that lives in Windsor Forest in England, in Berkshire. He's even mentioned in The Merry Wives of Windsor by Shakespeare. And it's a man with antlers growing out of his head. He's a supernatural being. And of course, that ties back to things like Korunos and the whole thing, the image of the Indo-European wild man with the antlers that like you have on the Galderstop cauldron, the famous cauldron that was found in Denmark. And yeah, I mean, this is and to me, this is just the whole thing is a nature spirit. That's what we're here. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a classic, wild nature spirit of the woods. And again, like here we go, the same problem we encountered with the Bigfoot Sasquatch story is that it was so hard to get people to understand in North America that these things in the rest of the world are not seen as animals; they're seen as spirits, and because they are. We'd have one by now, be hit by a car or something. And so this is what I think in America. There's a denial. I see this could come from the Puritan thing as well too. Like showing the things, the movies like The Witch, like the denial of the pagan past at any cost. So it can't be a nature spirit because that's too pagan. No, it has to be an unknown animal that's more Christian or more Puritan or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just that idea that like the only thing that can be spiritual to a lot of people is either like a monotheistic type thing or going down the IFLS type thing of that there's only the physical, there's only staunchly pragmatic atheistic point of view on life, that unless you can see it or see the direct effects of it, it doesn't exist. But yeah, I like this idea though that this nature spirit is showing again now that the hustle and bustle of things has died down from the way things were not too long ago, and that we'll start having as we're saying, shaping a new reality, that there's going to be those of us helping them, the nature spirits be visible again and interact with them in a much more beautiful way than in previous decades, previous centuries.
Yeah, there's definitely some reason for it. I mean, between the white stags being seen and being shot, and then this thing now, these punch points, these 40 punch points are, nodes come along for a reason. They're not accidental. Something is happening in the consciousness.
Definitely. And I think like what you were saying with the puritanical overlay of everything here in the States, I'm really, really excited to be a part of helping to kind of shift that. And whoever else wants to stay in the Puritan mindset, that I don't care what they do, they can do that. But there is this new rising in this, I don't want to use the neo-pagan term, but just an awareness of like, we come from places where these things exist as spirits. They're not just merely, a fucking deer with mad cow disease or, you saw a misshapen branch or something.
Lovecraft as growing up, described himself as a pagan. And he said that like these entities of the Greco-Roman gods lived in the woods of New England too, and stuff like that. And so, he knew when he was creating his pantheon of American gods, that in his own mythos, that he was basically invoking an American version of what already existed in the rest of the world for his own culture, the Mayflower culture.
Right. Yeah. I'm happy to see that taking off more and more and getting stronger and stronger over here.
Yep.
And I like what you said, Thomas, about Fortean nodes, so to speak. I like that because I tend to think of time and experience as like a harmonic, and within harmonics, the parcels get closer together the higher up you go into the harmonic sequence. So as we go forward in time, I would imagine that those nodes were just getting closer and closer and closer, where in times past, it might have been, a century would pass before two nodes would be seen next to each other. And now we're just having node after node after node that we're hitting.
Yep.
All right. Well, are you ready to hit us with the psychic weather?
Sure.
Buckle up, everybody. This is where it gets real good.
Is it bad? Is it great? Are you happy? Are you irate? The weekend psychic weather.
Hello, this week's psychic weather report with me, Thomas Sheridan, is a bit of an interruption to one that's been running for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've been talking about the aspect of betrayal, knife in the back, backstabbing, and this kind of thing. And that's still very much in the fore as we reach towards the Christmas period, the Yule period. And we're seeing it all the time. We're seeing the gaslighting ramping up within the mainstream. And in many ways, the people who are supposed to be taking stewardship of our societies are constantly betraying us for great resets and so on. So it's even if it's not happening in your own personal life, it's happening absolutely on the macro scale. Now, something happened the last few days that's very important, and I feel is very important. When the lockdown first began back in 2020, we were having dreams. We were all having very strange dreams, off the scale dreams. And so much so that national media all over the world had articles saying, why is everyone having strange dreams? And this set up alarm bells for me. Since when do the globalists care about what we dream about? And it was either some kind of an experiment was happening, or they were having the same dreams and were wondering if we were getting oracles of insight of what was being done to us, and the real story of what was going on behind the Rona and so on. Now, my dreams at the time during that April lockdown of 2020 were quite frightening, and they were quite disturbing. And something happened to me then, by the way. I found it very difficult to sleep normally ever again since that point. I find myself now the only way I can stop those dreams was to actually sit up, sleep upright with my bare feet touching the ground, like I was grounding myself. And I've been sleeping on and off like that since then. Now, in the last 2 days, I've had the recurring dreams that I had at the beginning of the lockdown. But here's the thing, and this is so spooky in terms of what you were saying about this time going backwards. They're the same dreams in reverse, and they're disturbing me. They're making me feel like I'm losing it. They're very unsettling in a way I can't describe. And I find myself having to wake myself up because I literally can't figure out what the experience I'm having while I'm having these dreams. And I think many of us are probably experiencing the same thing. I'm having the dreams that I had back in the early 2000s, in the early part of the lockdown, in reverse. And in the dream, I'm trying to correct things. And as I try to correct them, they get more and more insane and twisted and more upsetting and disturbing for me. I have to sit aside of the bed with my bare feet on the floor grounded. It's the only way I can stop them and bring myself back to kind of a sense of, emotional and cognitive equilibrium. Now, this is indicative of obviously an opening and a closing period. So obviously what was experienced at the beginning is now closing. And the next story we're going to cover, I think, is deeply profound. I believe that we're now going into a period of an unwinding or a spring that has been twisted and wound so tight it's now snapping, or it has snapped. And we're living in a very strange place at the moment, but I also think it's a very positive thing, because I think the stream is indicating that we're looking at the end of this nonsense that we've dealt with since Christmas to 2019, January 2020. And so that's the week in psychic weather. The dream oracle is there for the taking. Pay attention, notice it, and see what you feel, because I have a feeling our dreams are going to absolutely explode right about now with symbolism and strangeness that's off the scale. And that's the psychic weather with me, Thomas Sheridan.
Is it bad? Is it great? Are you happy? Are you irate? The week in psychic weather.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I think all of us in our dreaming states have been having loops of time going forward and coming back and opening and then closing. So we definitely are moving towards or through the end of something now. Hearing the way that you described your dreams was really fascinating. So the way we're going to handle the rest of this is we're going to do it a little bit differently than before. We're not actually going to read a scripted story. This is more in real time. It's breaking. It's happening right now. There's nothing being written right now that really is good enough. It's all mainstream. So I'm sure every single one of you have heard of the new variant that's flying around out there, and the name. So I have been so delighted to see so many of you, so many of us tearing into this thing. And and even normies out there that I've seen, in comment sections here and there, just finally kind of being like, this is bullshit. And this one just goes a little bit too far. It's a little too obvious. The name seems a little too funky, a little too ominous. I'm so proud of everybody that's, taken time out of their personal day and what they could have done, put towards something else and done some research. And everybody's kind of gone at it in their own way. But there's two really glaring instances of the time loop going back in time, and then now it's here again. And so the two was with the movie, I believe it was 1964. It was a movie called Omicron. And then there is a video a music video, I believe, or was it a video game?
Video game.
A video game. Okay. So music from a video game that has the face of David Bowie overlaid onto whatever character this was by the same name, this Omicron. So Thomas, I'm going to let you talk about that because I know you were really, really excited, and then just fly off in the comments where this is going to be definitely a collective conversation, but I'm going to let Thomas kind of take the lead on this one right here.
Well, ever since the whole Rona thing started, I've been looking for some kind of blowback, something beyond the mundane that would actually push us somewhere else into the more supernatural elements of it. And it hadn't really happened, although we all had a creeping feeling that this thing was very much a spiritual event in many ways, the way it was affecting us all, the way it was affecting the world as a whole. And, sometimes when you're a victim of extreme gaslighting, you can have something akin to a spiritual event because you're unable to lock your cognition into anything you can positively recognize. People I know who have been very badly damaged and gaslighted in psychopathic relationships sometimes have told me that they felt almost like they were in a daze, like reality. There was almost like the gaslighting had thrown them into a kind of a mystical state of confusion, that where they didn't even know if they were alive or dead or not. Now, this seems to be kind of what's happening with us because we've been seeing gaslighted so much through the mainstream media, the globalists and the governments. Now, this WW4 thing that Jason talks about. Now, this thing with the Italian movie, as soon as I saw the poster, I said, that's interesting. And then when they described what it's about an alien force that enters a person as a virus. Now, the film is like a dark comedy, and it's about an alien, and it's an Italian working class guy who's basically invaded by an alien, and he's told to study Earth. And it's kind of it's a comedic kind of thing, way done. It's very kind of Jerry Lewis style. 1960s kind of humor and Nutty Professor almost. But it's got a very dark subtext because all the while they're trying to understand how human life is. So it's written against the backdrop of an ongoing industrial dispute at a factory and management spying on all the employees with cameras and trying to figure out who the agitator was. The agitators is so they can control the actual life of the workers. In the end of the film, we actually find that the management has been taken over by this alien force as well. So it's so interesting that it's an alien force that enters through a virus that's associated with death and resurrection and the idea of control, absolute control of people. And that was fantastic enough. And then the other day, someone points out that this game was spelled the same way with a K rather than a C, that David Bowie, we all know, was a seer and a mystic, was not only the voiceover in this game, but was also one of the writers. And he was pointing out, the story is basically that a demonic force has made the human race compliant and weak, and they're all asleep. And there's a certain element of humanity which will awaken and go down in history if they can defeat this alien demonic force that has everyone asleep. And the subtext is Nomad Saturn, I think, was the actual subtitle of the film. And so, I mean, here we are. We got two 9/11 style blowbacks from the future, coupled with the strange dreaming that I mentioned, the psychic weather. And I think we're heading for the mother of all events regarding this whole thing. Something is going to really kick in the next few months. I really do feel it. And don't be surprised if more of this old stuff starts appearing. Because remember, the same forces that impact upon our lives, the same archetypal, spiritual, and dynamic forces that impact upon my life and your life also impacts upon the psychopaths in charge. So they're not immune to these changes either. And they don't understand them like we do, and they greatly fear them. And we may have the rats finally on the run. And we should get buckled down, because I think we're going to see history unfold in the most remarkable ways in the next few months.
Absolutely, Thomas. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, we're going towards some sort of nexus point, an event horizon where we're about to collectively cross an abyss together. And just this thing about that's coming forth with that film that you were talking about, with the kind of an alien walk-in. Like I was talking to you about this earlier this year, Thomas. I think it was back in the springtime. I want to say it was like on the anniversary time frame of when the whole thing went down, about interdimensional body snatchers, that, you know, not necessarily aliens from outer space, but a different life form, from a totally different universe is what I think, coming in on the edge of the coin, so to speak, between, when we talk about C333 being there at the edge of the abyss. So if, somewhere between the state of being awake and the state of being unconscious, there, at 3:33 in the morning, where it's in between night and day, the same kind of thing I think could occur, where something can insert itself into this reality right there and probably find its way into, what we colloquially call the NPC type, or, if you're somebody who's incredibly hypnotized, where, even if they're not necessarily a non-playing character in the game, but people who are so hypnotized and indoctrinated into the mainstream way of doing things that the only thing they have to run off of is, Pavlovian style conditioning. So somebody who's so under that control would be the easiest person for a walk-in type entity to go into. And, all of anybody here that's, looks into the occult and looks into anything mystical, the idea of a walk-in being a, not a Christopher Walken, but a walk-in hyphen walk hyphen in, the idea that somebody's body being taken over by another driver, so to speak. So if you look at, use the analogy of someone driving a car, you being the driver and your body being the car, the idea that something else coming in and taking the wheel over the body. So just this idea of an invasion, for lack of better terms, of this universe by other entities. And if, I don't know, in my opinion, I think that that's kind of what's been going on for the last couple of years, probably even before the whole thing began. But if we are coming to a point in time where if, these two timelines are converging, going in different directions, like the first story said, that perhaps that's what it's about, is when this thing arrived fully. Like maybe there are scouts here right now, just like with any type of invasion. You don't send in stormtroopers initially. You send in scouts, you send in sleepers, you send in, intelligence people, spies, to kind of fit in and gather intel on your opponent, your enemy. And I think that might have been what's been going on for the last couple of centuries. It's just scouts, the forward invasion party being sleepers. And then once it's actually time for something, we could actually see, if these entities are crossing over, start actually seeing combative ones. But again, take that with as much salt as you'd like to, as big of a grain of salt as you'd like to. But I think that could be something that's going on here, just especially with that letter that they are naming this new thing off of with the O, and that's the next. And I think in the Greek alphabet, the next letter after this is omega, right? The end. Yeah. So that's just
throw another thing into the mix as well in terms of mythology. You'll see that so much mythology that gods are destroyed by their offspring. And if you think of this thing as being, okay, let's start with the original name for this was the corona, right? The god, the king, the crown, the sun, the ultimate expression, the leader. Now we have this. Is it possible that this is the embodiment of the child who destroys his own father? Has this arrived to come to actually help us? Now, if you look, and this is a common thing all through mythology, of a god who gives birth to his own destroyer. And this is why, Saturn eats his own children and things like this. Has it been Choronzon from the start, right? Has it been something like that? Has it been Kronos or something like that? And it's been waiting for its destroyer to be born. Its destroyer is now here. Its child that eats it. Now, this is common in many things. Even the Cathars believed that Jesus Christ came to destroy his father, who was Jehovah or Yahweh, the Demiurge. In Vedic and Hindu mythology, you have the demon Kali, not to be confused with the goddess Kali. The demon Kali was actually was birthed from Dharma, and he became the embodiment of a Dharma. And he carried with him a long sword he pierced people with, like a needle, like this kind of thing. And here we are again. Is this the one that's coming to destroy the initial creator? Is this Saturn's? And remember, what was the name of this? Wasn't the subtitle of that Omicron with the K David Bowie thing, Saturn Nomad or something like that, or Nomad Saturn or something like that? We could be dealing with this, which was Kronos too as well. We could well be dealing with our incredible supernatural, mythological, archetypal forces unfolding in front of us, where the golden child is Omicron about to slew its father, the corona. And this is what I'm starting to think now.
Yeah, I agree. I love what you threw in there. We talked about it just briefly the other day together. The corona, and then how you linked in Choronzon and then Chronos. And so if we're talking about time, well, first of all, we're talking about dispersion, right? So there's Choronzon. And then if we're talking about Chronos, then we're talking about time, this beginning and this end, this moving backwards, this closing of something that has been going on. And now we're moving through the end of it. So it all goes together. No matter which way you want to look at it, you can still fit the pieces all together.
Yeah. I think that when you think of a variant, it's the same thing as a child. It's the genetic offspring of the initial king, the corona.
And like what Timony was just saying about coming to a closing of things, did you want to share your gematria that you did?
We can.
Yeah, so she did this really awesome gematria, and it just one of the things that came up in there, and I'm not going to go into all of her details on it. She can share it herself, but just reminded me that one of the words in gematria that came up was helicopter. And I just remember before this whole thing occurred, before anything was in the news, there was the helicopter crash with Kobe Bryant back in February of 2020. That there's this big psychic charge that, everybody knows who Kobe Bryant is. And it's like, there's this, at least in the United States, there's this tremendous psychic charge there. And then the other weird thing that kind of is like if we talk about like the same things being at the beginning of the ritual as at the end of the ritual, another one that was a strange, weird synchronicity was that show Tiger King, which I remember when I saw that come on the TV, I'm like, seriously, what the fuck is this? This is like, at the time, I'm like, I was trying to watch it with my wife, and she's just like really enthralled by it. And I'm just like, what is this shit? I don't find this entertaining at all. It seems strangely like kind of, I don't know, kind of mind control-y. And then the season 2 of it just came out here, I want to say like a couple weeks ago. So yeah, it's just like, it's just weird to me that there are things that were there at the beginning of this whole thing that are starting to make their way back, just like we're doing the closing rites of some sort of ritual. Yeah.
And also this takes in place, it's happening now during Hanukkah. The Hanukkah in the Jewish tradition is where the oil and the lamps in the temple burned longer than they should have. And they burned for a much longer period, and that was considered a miracle. They hacked time. They made like actual fire last a longer time. Like they stretched out time, and they made a miracle occurred where the lights burned long, where the lamp burned longer. And that's why they have the Hanukkah candle thing. Now that's fine. I find that interesting that it's happened at this period as well too. So this is we're living in real mythology now, and I think everyone should be very excited about this. There's nothing to fear. And if you've listened to my stuff and other people's stuff over the years, you'll know you've done your homework and you're getting ready for these periods. This is what the tribe exists for. So we actually ride the zeitgeist of these cosmic changes and know exactly what to do, rather than to be crushed by them. We watch them, we observe them, and we survive them. And, and just like the Jews in the temple who survived at Hanukkah, perhaps the same thing as we as the tribe are going to happen to us as well. We've survived the needle. We've survived the assaults, the mind control, the gaslighting, the propaganda, the hatred, the absolute hatred. We're still here. We're still standing. And this is probably our reward for it, is this final resolution where the offspring, the child, the variant of the initial monster who started this, is about to slew its own father.
Yeah, I dig that. So within the zeitgeist, and like I was saying before, everybody spent their time kind of researching and looking into this in whatever way that it came to them. My intuitive thing was to go straight to gematria. I like that system a lot. So I started punching in the word. So the particular one that I use, you can get the Jewish and the English results. So and they can they string in between each other too. So I typed in the word Omicron. And straight away through the Jewish gematria, the number value was 262. And so when you extrapolate that out, there was a bunch of words, but the two that really stood out was Bill H. Gates and infection. And then if you take that and then jump over to the English gematria, the numerological value is 522. And this was the one that really kind of had my jaw on the floor. And the words that came out of that was Holocaust, helicopter crash, Angela Merkel, Aryan, Karl Marx, Messianic billionaire, inoculation, Pope Francis' death, and iron scepter. That one kind of threw me for a loop. I wasn't necessarily shocked and surprised, but it was really cool validation for me that whatever my intuitive feeling was about, there was something in that word. There was phrases, and there was a whole realm of stuff that was behind that one word. And obviously I didn't know what it was just by looking at it. But so I just followed that through and then went to the generator, and all of this stuff just was like falling out. So that was my little piece of research that I did that was like, yep. Okay. I mean, we already know it was bullshit, but then you see it for yourself and you work it out for yourself. And it's great validation, and it gives you strength to keep on going and keep following those intuitive leads.
On a personal level, it's well known that I've had the god Sobek manifest in front of me while at a very difficult period of my life when I was very ill about 13 years ago. And Sobek looked at me like, you're a pussy, like I was just a fool. Well, last week I encountered Sobek in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford out of the blue. I didn't even know one of the statues from Egypt was taken there and was on display. And I had that almost AWAS moment like Rose did in the Cairo Museum. And I felt like that Sobek was saying to me, you did it, you made it, you passed the test. I earned respect. So what was that? And this happened now, this thing happens, it's here we are. I mean, enthrall yourself with what's happening around you and unfolding.
Yeah. And I think what Timony did there with the gematria was really impressive. And just the fact that so many, I've seen enough people on social media doing their own gematria and on pieces of paper, writing out different combinations of letters before there were any memes made. I mean, we've all by today seen the memes that people have made with moronic and stuff like that. Mind controlled, right? And people were just doing this on their own. It's like, so there was something there, like Timony said, in the zeitgeist of, oh, there's gematria in this. There's something there to unfold, and people who who have that ability to see those patterns, like Timony, was just able to go, okay, there's something obviously in here, and enough people are doing that right now. And I mean, just that there's got to be something with this time we're going into, and everybody's been talking about this winter and this fall, and the time period kind of being up through about February, right? That February is just everywhere. So many people are talking about February. And it's just, is that by February something occurs, or is February when it happens, in the middle of winter? So it's real interesting to see that. And just this idea that, like you said, Thomas, we've made it through onto the other side of something. And I was talking about like the reincarnation thing. It's like, it almost seems like there are enough people falling out of our lives collectively. Like we've all kind of moved on from the paradigms that don't serve us anymore. And it's just, it's one of those things where it feels almost surreal. Like, is this some kind of like metempsychosis where literally like everybody that was in my life a year ago, 2 years ago, is kind of no longer in my life anymore. I'm going through a divorce. I left my home, my cat, everything. And it's just like, it's like the paradigm that I existed in a year ago just no longer exists. And sometimes it feels like, is this some kind of more, of a psychic transformation that we're all going through, creating a new reality that's why this is so more malleable than how concrete things were, like I would say prior to 2016, because it seems like around 2016 for me was when I started to notice, obviously, that this reality is no longer the same. And it wasn't just the Donald Trump aspect of it, that no, there's the old consensus reality that was held together, that was like so solid, was just not as solid anymore. And that, the amount of magical charge that was there to work with things was just in abundance. So it's like, whether we're creating a new reality, a moonchild, so to speak, of the next incarnation of mankind, the next collective evolution of the species. That's kind of what I'd like to think, is that, it's not like we're trying to create like the Aryan race or something like that, where people are trying to create like a master race, but it's more like, no, this is part of the collective evolution of all mankind. That, the philosophies and stuff that people are picking up outside of the mainstream academia, like, so much of the stuff that Christian talks about and all these other people in the group, that, we're creating a new paradigm that's not so academic anymore. And there's the mythological aspect that people like Thomas bring to us, and so many others, where it's like, we're getting outside of where, the world that needed authority figures within academia, within politics, within government. We're no longer in that kind of universe anymore. And I'd like to think that we're moving towards that next renaissance that's going to occur. But in order for that to occur,
well, I think what you said about our lives all changing, I know Timony as well, 2018 was a horrible fucking year. It was horrible. And I found that by the end of 2018, that the people that I was surrounding myself with were nothing but cowards, liars, and backstabbers. And I got rid of all of them. And what did we get during the whole Rona experience? A world full of cowards, liars, and backstabbers. And that's what we were experiencing before that. We were going through a kind of a boot camp, many of us, that was preparing for what was going to happen from 2020 on. I truly do believe that, to give us the skill sets to survive and to help others pass through this Stargate into what's in and out the other side. I really do believe that.
Yeah, it's just that Stargate thing, Thomas. We were watching your 9/11 Stargate video with AV9. That was just such a wonderful video. I think we'll post that up on Facebook here for everybody else to take a look at, just because it's just another one of those moments now. Like if you're talking about the nodes within the 40 and stuff, it's just we're getting closer together, where it's like up all the way up there in the harmonic, that they're basically the harmonics are stacked on top of each other as we cross over. It's just like, I think it was Terence McKenna talking years ago about time wave zero, where he mapped the hexagrams or the trigrams of the I Ching over with an old computer software. He put it over like the pivotal moments within history, like the fall of Rome, the dropping of the atomic bomb, JFK assassination. And he found all these nodes that lined up, and that somewhere, I want to say he gave a time window from like 2000 to 2030 or something like that. He had some sort of time frame that was going to be when he called it when novelty increases to the point of where the things are occurring so quickly that you get to that event horizon and cross over that threshold, and then things start to slow down again. Yeah. So it's like, I think that's what people were tapping into with the whole Mayan calendar 2012 thing, that, some people had the evangelical side of it, that the world itself was going to end. Perhaps it was more like the world as we knew it was, getting recycled, just like, yeah.
I would say to people, the message we're getting now is hold fast to what is true, and allow the deceivers and the cowards to be digested inside the guts of Quran's on. That's all you have to do is to hold fast. What you have, you hold, and hold on to it.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I guess my last thing too would just be, I might be pretty clumsy with an actual sword or something, but my psychic weaponry has never been stronger, and I have absolutely no fear of losing somebody because I have a fond memory of them or something. But losing them for when I finally see them for what they are, and got no problem getting rid of motherfuckers. Yeah. So yeah, that's my thing to all of you, and I know you guys already know this and already get it, and most of you are already doing this, but just stay strong. We've gotten through the worst of it. I think if we've, like what Thomas has said, if we've survived the unimaginable amount of gaslighting, it's so repetitive. And if that hypnosis hasn't worked on us by now, it really, like, it's almost comical at this point how fucking bad it is.
Yep. Just sit back and don't be worrying about it. Enjoy the greatest show on earth, and be privileged that you have the eyes to sit in the front row and see the performance for what it was.
Absolutely. And we all have each other, the group online is my favorite place. And if the internet ever goes out, that's the only thing I'm going to be sad about. But yeah, but we're all connected, in our ways that actually matter. So, just buckle up and enjoy the ride and stay strong. And we're going to get through this, and it's going to be all right.
Yeah. If you're new to this program on YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification button, and please share, because this is
join us in our YouTube, join us on our Facebook group too.
Yeah, on their face, as Christian said last week, this is really the week insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you everybody on Facebook for tuning in today. I think this is one of the biggest turnouts we've ever had, and thank you for whatever reason. A lot of my music friends from back in my college days tuned in here today. So it's nice to see you coming in, seen away. If you're still in there, thank you for coming by and commenting. I appreciate that, Joe. All of you, appreciate you coming in. And Patreon. We do have a Beyond Room 313 Patreon account now, which is out there to help fund, traveling to and film gear, to cover travel expenses, so we can get out there and make more movies for you. More.
Thank you, Leela.
Yes. Thank you, Leela. Thank you for all of you who've pledged, I think is the term that they use on Patreon, but it's patreon.com/BR313. So as in Beyond Room 313, patreon.com/BR313. And thank you, Leela, for putting the link there in the comments. But yeah, this has been such a lovely week in Strange this week. And let me turn it over to Timothy to close things out.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this was definitely a breaking news type episode today, where we went off script, but I think it was great. It was organic, really super dynamic. Everybody kind of brought forward what they have been seeing and feeling and working on. And Thomas, thank you so much. As always, you always really tie everything together in such a beautiful way. And so thank you for taking time out of your day to always be here. And we appreciate the shit out of you.
Same
the
here.
Whole shit.
I mean, like, I feel incredibly privileged that the three of us and all the tribe are able to actually live this time together as not bewildered observers, but enthralled observers, because we're not victims of the zeitgeist. We're actually riding along it. You know, it's like, here we are. I mean, we're living in living mythology, and I feel very privileged, and we should all feel very privileged.
Definitely. Definitely. All right, you guys. Well, we will see you out there in the wild online on Facebook in the group. Continue to work your magic and do your awesome shit, and continue to be very well and happy and healthy and all that stuff. And we will catch you on the flip.